welcome to Winging It and Winning, a podcast show where you will be motivated and encouraged to follow your dreams. My name is Veronica, and today we are interviewing Dr. Jovanov, a practicing nurse practitioner with a strong skill set in the family and acute care setting. Her career began at Riverside Community Hospital as a staff RN in 2001. She is a first generation college graduate. Her parents migrated from Serbia and Central America and settled in California. She obtained a master's in nursing degree from UCLA, specializing in acute care nurse practitioner CNS program. She found that as a nurse practitioner that a strong business acumen was important and went back for her MBA with the focus in finance from Redlands University. She completed her DNP from Duke University in 2019 with a focus on health literacy. She has worked in various institutions from small community settings to large academic institutions, including UC San Francisco and Stanford Health. Her specialty is cardiac surgery and critical care. She is a pioneer in the Inland Empire, becoming one of the first and few nurse practitioners first assist in the operating room from the cardiac surgery to assisting in delivering babies by C-section while billing independently. She wrote protocols and guidelines for local hospitals regarding nurse practitioners' scope of practice and became a content expert in her field. She mentors other nurse practitioners that are interested in her role. She teaches as an adjunct professor at California Baptist University. She currently works in Rancho Mirage in general surgery and is the chair of the APP Council. She is also the president-elect for the California for Nurse Practitioners, a large organization supporting nurse practitioners throughout California. She is passionate about her role and advocates that nurse practitioners are knowledgeable of their contributions to the healthcare organization. She feels that every nurse practitioner should be informed and engaged in their practice, otherwise other people make decisions for you. Please help me welcome the one and only Cynthia Jovanov.
Thank you.
I always mess up
It's okay. Thank you, though. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for my presentation, and here we are.
I know. Well, thank you for being here. I mean, your intro is amazing. Like, all of the things that you've accomplished thus far in life is so inspiring to me.
Thank you.
I've known you for about 20 years now. Mm-hmm. You met me when I was a young 18-year-old. And I've kind of like watched you, like you started your medical career when I first met you. That's when we were starting. So to see all that you've accomplished brings me so much joy, and I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
And when I asked you to be on the show, it's because I felt like your story is very encouraging. And I think that all of this is great and all of your education is so wonderful, but there's also a person behind all of this education that you have that made you who you are.
Right.
And like for me, that's amazing. Like that's awesome, you know? So I wanted to bring you on to hopefully encourage other people that are out there that have maybe thought about going back to school or maybe thought about pursuing a career but haven't because of their fear or whatever it is that's holding them back.
Right.
So that's why I like to share motivating stories like yours.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. Well, I appreciate that.
And now you can add, and has hosted on Winging It and Winning.
Of course.
2021.
Yes, I'll spread it all over social media. Thank you.
Yes, you're going to add that to your resume.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So tell me, what got you, how did you start this whole, how did you start getting into the medical field, and what encouraged you? Like, what was the thing that pushed you? Like, okay, let's talk about that.
All right, so let's see. I gotta think back a long time. Okay, so let's see. What got me started really was I had Adriana and Alexis, my two kiddos. I had Adriana really young, and we could go into that story. But
how old were you?
When I had Adriana, I had Adriana at 15.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I had her really young. I was really kind of a lost kid at that time. I mean, who isn't at 15, right?
Yes.
So I had her really young, and what ended up happening is when I had her, at that time, it was like 19, because I had her in 95. So it was like 94, the end of 94. at that time, the pregnant girls were kind of isolated, and so they were forced to obviously not be on campus, I'm sure for liability reasons, or, it's just a different time. And I ended up finishing school at 16 after I had her, because we ended up going into that it was like a half adult, half high school.
Yeah, it's like independent study.
Yeah. So
there's another name for it, but I forgot.
I know it is like an independent studies. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up finishing high school right after I had her, and graduated at the age of 16 from high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So because of that half independent studies kind of thing. So once I had her, I was like, oh my God, I'm 16. What the hell am I going to do with myself? And so growing up, I hung around a not so safe crowd. Mm-hmm. And we can definitely delve into that. But at that time, I started working. At that time, you could pretty much have a job at 16.
Mm-hmm. With the worker's permit or something?
Yeah. But I was kind of already forced emancipated because I had a kid and I was 16. I was already finished from high school. And so then I started the community college, which was Riverside, mm-hmm. and which is now like quadrupled in size. And I just started taking courses. I kind of just signed up. Never, nobody in my family has been to college. Mm-hmm. Obviously, my parents did not go to college. They were from third world countries, and I think they had just an elementary education. So, I was trying to navigate school. So I started taking a little bit of classes. I think I failed a lot of classes because at 16, 17, you're like still trying to figure out what am I doing? Who am I? And college is different from high school. You're trying to figure out your studying time, organization. I didn't have any of that.
And you had a baby on top of it.
And I had a baby. Yeah. And, here I am trying to juggle these things. I didn't know what that was. So, let me tell you, I failed a few courses, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. My kids kind of laugh at me now because I was so hard on them in mm-hmm. school. And then they found my report card. They're like, how dare you, mother? How dare you?
Oh, please. You don't have a baby to take care of, and you have internet access, and you don't have to worry about your neighborhood, and you have food on your table. Like, how dare me? Stop.
So funny.
Yeah.
And it was really hard. Well, Adriana was really hard on her.
Yeah.
And so when she failed the class, I'm like, Adriana,
Yeah.
And then it was like years down the line, I was like cleaning stuff up, or she was. And she found my report card and she's like, oh, how dare you get so mad at me? You failed math twice, mother.
Yeah, I know.
I was like, hey, I was 16, 17. I didn't know much,
Yeah.
I expect more from you.
Exactly. I can get you a tutor. I didn't have that. Right?
Yes, it's true. So, again, I was not perfect. So I ended up going, I really didn't know what to do at the community college. Mm-hmm. And then, you meet people, then everybody's like, oh, I'm going to go into this field. I'm going to go. But, you had advisors, but advisors just advise. Mm-hmm. So I didn't really have any role models. Like, I didn't know anybody. Mm-hmm. My mother actually was a CNA. Mm-hmm. And that's all I really knew when I was little. She used to take me to her job. This was obviously pre-child. So that's all I really knew. And so then what ended up happening was I ended up signing up for the nursing program, and I ended up getting into the LVN program. And then they had a track that once you got into the LVN program, you test into the RN program. And I ended up getting into the RN program. And then once I graduated, I went straight as a new grad into critical care. By the time I did all that, I was 21. And
wow.
Yeah. But mind you, I was at the community college for like 4 years. Or maybe even 5, I think.
But 21 to me is still young. Like,
right.
But I don't know. Do people usually finish faster?
Sometimes, I guess. People had different tracks. I think my cohort, they were older than me, so they were like in their 30s and 40s. Some people.
So you were young in your cohort.
Yeah, I was young. And then by the time I was 21, I was married or getting married, and then I had Adriana, and that was kind of how I got into nursing. I remember graduating, and I didn't even know what to do in nursing. I just remember I went on a bunch of interviews, and it wasn't till a friend of mine that I graduated with at Riverside Community College, he's like, oh, I'm going to go into critical care. And I'm like, oh, that sounds like fun. Maybe I'll go too. And so we ended up both being hired as new grads into the critical care unit. So that was kind of, I didn't have a plan. I just was like, oh, that sounds like fun. Sure, I'll do that too. Why not? you know, so
Yeah.
that was kind of what led me to where I'm at.
It kind of was like you were at the right time at the right place, because your friend was asking you, like telling you what he was doing. You're like, hey, that sounds like fun. And you didn't even know what you were getting into. Like, you're totally winging it. Right? Like, let's wing this. Let's see what it is. I don't have another plan. Why not? And I'm young. I'm 21. Like, you know, try it out. See if it works out. And look at where it's got you. Like, you've elevated since then.
Yes. So it's been quite an adventure, I have to say. And then, you know, I built my career being a critical care nurse, and I did everything in that capacity as a nurse. And then I decided there comes a time where you look at your career and you're a little bit like, okay, you look at your family, you look at, you know, kind of where you're at in life. You do this self-evaluation, and I was ready to move on and get more education. And it wasn't really until a friend of mine that I worked with, she really kind of mentored me at work and said, you know, Cynthia, you really should go into teaching. You should really go back to school. You have, you know, X, Y, and Z qualities. I'm like, no. And then I decided to do it, and I started teaching, got my bachelor's. And then after that, it was a stepping stone. And then I went and got my master's. And then I finally finished my, what we call in nursing, a terminal degree. And you can have 2 pathways to a terminal degree, and that is a doctorate of nursing practice or your PhD. So I decided the doctorate of nursing practice because that's more clinical based. Okay. Versus a PhD is a lot of research. Okay. So yeah, I just finished that in 2019. So it was pretty exciting. I'm definitely the first in my family to accomplish a terminal degree. I think that going back to school, despite the trials and tribulations throughout the whole time, a lot of my family members have gone back. So I feel like I've kind of laid the groundwork, you know, for everybody to kind of follow. And, you know, same with my kids. I mean, you know, my girls, you know, they have to go to college because I think that's where the opportunities lie. And so that's kind of what ended up happening during that course.
Yeah, no, that's a good point that you say, is like that's where opportunities lie, because you said something that sparked my it like kind of like, yes, that's true. When you said that somebody was telling you, you know, Cynthia, you should go to, like, at work, she was like, you should do this because I think you'd be good at it. Yeah. Like when I went to school, people were telling me what they saw in me that we sometimes don't see in ourselves. Right. And that's why going to college and working in a certain field is beneficial, because you are with people who are trying to help you. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, yeah, you'll have haters in the workplace, you'll have haters at school, but you'll have more supporters, I think. Yeah. That's what I've experienced anyways, people who cheer you on. And my when I went to college, that's when I realized, like, my possibilities are endless. Like, I can really do I believed in myself. Right. And it was like the one time where I believed, like, I can do anything I put my mind to. And because people would help me. Like, the help was out there. It was never given to, I don't know, and you worked hard for it. Like you said, the trials and tribulations. Right. Like, you stuck with it. Right.
Yeah, and I think that over the course, obviously, I'm, 42. A lot of maturity comes with trials and tribulations, good and bad. And I think as I reflect back, I think what ends up happening is I'm a firm believer that people are put in your life for a reason, but they're also taken out of your life for a reason. So, for example, bad relationships, bad friends, right? Great friends. I mean, I'm sure you and I can talk about how many good friends we've had in our lives and how many we've lost, right? Yeah. For petty stuff. And relationships, right? And I think that, again, how many relationships have we been in and they've been phenomenal and then they end up toxic? I mean, we've been there, done that. So I'm a firm believer that people are in your lives to actually learn about yourself. And I also believe that you have to listen to the whispers. So I say that to a lot of people. I say that to my kids, but there really are whispers. Like, it could be the housekeeper that you work with every day, who will say something like, Cynthia, maybe you should go back. And it's like, I think I should go back. It's just those whispers. Yeah. It doesn't have to be somebody of authority. Nope. It could be somebody you just work with every day, who's like your colleague at work, your ride or die crew. It could be your tribe, and you just have to listen to those whispers. And I think as I've gotten older, I've learned those whispers, or I can hear them finally, but it takes time.
Or hear them and believe them.
Yes.
Because we can hear them day in and day out.
Yes.
But if we don't believe them, then we're not going to follow through. But if we believe, like, hey, you know what? She probably, like just saying, like, she owes nothing to me. She's probably telling me the truth, that I would be good at this.
Yeah.
Let me do it.
Yeah.
And for me, like, what it's been like is hearing the whispers and just like anything that scares me is like volunteering to do it more. So that way that it, like, I do it until I have no more fear about doing it. Right. So that's like, but what has, like, when you said trials and tribulations, how have you gone through those? Because I know, like, for me, sometimes when I go through those trials and tribulations, sometimes it can, like, take me down for a couple days.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I've learned, like, give myself grace. It's okay. This is happening. Accept it, and you'll be able to. It's just temporary.
Right.
So what are things, like, how did you, because I was thinking when you were going to school, you had the girls. Did you, how did you handle managing the girls and your other issues that were going on, you know? How did you handle that?
So I think, you know, there was, like, different phases of my life. I think that as women, I will speak as women, I always say that as women, we tend to evolve every 10 years. So who we are in our 20s, right? What we like in our 20s, it changes when we're in our 30s, right? When we're in our 30s, by the time we get to our 40s, and what we like and don't like, or what we tolerate, then we evolve into something different. You know, who I will be in my 50s, I'm sure it'll be different, right? So I tend to say that I've evolved every 10 years, and I probably have, like, mini crisis every 10 years. So I think that the trials and tribulations have allowed me to evolve, but I think it probably started, you know, just kind of getting through all the difficulties was because I think I probably witnessed it from my mother. So, you know, my mother was a single mother. We were very, you know, poor. She probably had like 4 million jobs, like a typical mother. You know, I kind of raised myself, I think, during that time. You can stay home alone at the age of 5 and the cartoons babysat me, right? Do you remember those days?
I skipped those times just a little bit because I had so much family members.
Yeah.
But a lot of, like, kids take care of kids and they're out. Yeah.
And so, and then with my mother at the time, you know, she struggled. We had a home in Stanton, California. It's like 1 mile in Orange County. And we actually had roommates. So, you know, we had roommates. We had a 4-bedroom house, and we had roommates that helped pay the bills. But, you know, a lot of these roommates, oh my God, I could tell you, like, I've met so many stories. But I was young. I was like, throughout my whole life, at that time, I didn't even have my own bedroom.
Yeah.
You know, we're a Hispanic family. You know how that is. You'll have brother, sister, cousin all sleep on the same bed, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, but that was like a trying time for my mother. And, you know, I was young. I didn't know any better. I was sitting there watching Tom and Jerry on the cartoons. And, you know, we had a lot of roommates. And I think seeing people pass by, they came in all shapes and forms. It was wild. I mean, I think about it now, and I think seeing my mother go through that, but also kind of witnessing these people that came in and out of my life, they were just like temporary relationships, like, and it was, I think that is kind of what led to my resilience, like, just keep going.
Yeah.
And it just really didn't matter because people come and go. And I think that that's kind of where it stemmed from.
So you learned at a young age, like, people come and go. That's probably why you were able to release toxic relationships easily and just keep on going even when you encounter these hardships.
Right. And I think it made me a social butterfly.
Yeah.
Because I do like to talk to people. I like to talk to strangers. And so I think that made me come out of my shell a little bit because I was forced to interact with them. And, you know, nothing obviously ever happened when I was a kid. Everybody was really great. But I just met, like, couples, you know, people that have left divorces, people that, you know, were estranged from their children. I mean, it was just crazy, the things, you know, older women that, you know, were living off unemployment or disability, and they couldn't afford a living. So we had our own little family, but the family kept changing the dynamics, right?
Yeah, and the only thing constant was your mom. And,
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think I kind of learned it from that. I think it was, what I didn't recognize, it was just the hustle. You just hustled, right? you know, through the good and the bad, you just had to do it.
That's what you noticed your mom doing.
Right. And so I think, you know, a lot of that stemmed from that. And then, of course, you know, my mother was always at work, so I kind of raised myself. And then what comes with that is, you know, we didn't always live in the best neighborhoods, despite her doing her best. And, you know, I'm an only child. So having an only child, you feel lonely and you don't have a lot of friends. And, you know, you wonder why none of the kids can go outside and play past the lights.
You're like, what the heck? Why not? Your mom. Tell your mom that you're fine. Isn't she working or something?
Yeah, exactly. Like, hello, you know. And so I think being street savvy, you know, I think we discredit the savviness of being streetwise, you know.
Yeah.
I have 2 children, obviously they're 26 and 18, and I wonder about their street savviness.
Yeah.
Because I believe you develop survival skills.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you've gone through a lot growing up. But look at how it suited you well. Like, you've used those experiences to better your life, because you know, not that you didn't have any, what is it called, role models, but you had people who showed you what you did not want to be.
Exactly.
And that is just as important as having people who you want to be like.
Exactly. And that's, you really, you know, hit the nail on the head. The nail on the head. Yeah. You know what I mean.
I speak
Yes. Yeah. And so that really is what it came to. It was like, I was able to witness and you know, I grew up with, you know, people that were around drugs, you know, as a teenager before I got pregnant. I had friends that were doing drugs. I mean, I probably dabbled myself as a young kid. And I think I've had friends, you know, they were a part of gangs and they had died, they'd gotten shot. I've had funerals to attend. You know, at a young age, and believe it or not, this was before I was pregnant. So I was really running around the streets. The streets was my home, and just experiencing all that, you know, as a young kid. I mean, I did wild things. I mean, boy, there were times where me and my tribe, I will say, would like take off to LA and, you know, we would have parties in the orange groves, you know.
Or the hotel parties.
Or we would meet like just so many different people. I mean, it was just wild. And this was my pre-pregnant days, so I was like 14, 15.
Oh wow, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, but I was, you know, I was street savvy, I was streetwise, you know. I can assess kind of the situation, I can assess if people were bad or good, only because I grew up with all those roommates, right? All those people, and I was able to kind of figure out, were they good people, were they bad people, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you probably felt it, had like that intuition.
Yeah.
Like I know everything.
Yeah, so I kind of did, you know, I was pretty wild when I was younger. I won't go too deep into that, but...
But that's what made you, that's like what made you who you are today. And like, thankfully, again, this is all about, just because you had a young, wild life doesn't mean that you have to live that life as an adult.
Right.
You live and you learn.
Right.
And you realize what you want for your life.
Right.
Change. And this isn't the life you want anymore.
Right, exactly. And it wasn't, and it was so funny because when I had Adriana, obviously, you know, I got pregnant very young. And the relationship that I was in at the time when I got pregnant obviously fell apart. And so that was a bit of a, you know, a hit, a kind of a blow to your identity, you know. And, you know, it got ugly in regards to once I had Adriana dealing with her dad at the time. And then what ended up happening was once I had Adriana, and then I think it was like 6 months later, I literally finished high school. And I thought to myself, because, you know, I was doing that independent studies. What was I doing when I was pregnant? Nothing. Working on my homework packet, right?
Yeah, just trying not to get more, like, throw up on your homework. That's
Exactly. And I think that once I had Adriana, I realized, and, you know, I saw my friends. Now, mind you, I'm 16. And my friends that I grew up with, right, on the streets and whatnot, you know, a lot of them were on their second kid, right, from a different baby daddy, and you're like, okay, wait a minute. Or some of them got hooked on drugs really bad. You know, they developed a very bad addiction, you know. Some of them, you know, were out there selling their body, right? Just to get the next hit. And so I was witnessing all of this at this age, amongst friends, right? Or
which made it real. Like,
right,
they're
right.
my bestie. This can happen to me.
Exactly. And I think once I had Adriana, I was like, okay, I don't want to be this person. I don't want to be like him or her or this couple or, I did not want to be that. And so I think identifying with what I did not want to be is really what got me to actually on a healthy track.
Good.
And then going back to school and whatnot, because I was able to discern this is what I do want to be and this is what I do not want to be. And so that was really the guiding light, to be honest with you.
Good. That's good, because a lot of people learn like when they're older, and it's fine as long as you learn. But would you say that having Adriana giving you that time where you're pregnant, you can't go out anyways, kind of like paused your life for a second? Like, if you didn't have her, do you think your life would be like having?
Oh yeah, I would probably. Oh yeah, I would probably. I don't know if I didn't have her. I don't know. I could probably still be living a wild life. Yeah. I don't know how wild, but I'm sure it's wild. Yeah. But I think that, well, I'll tell you a funny story. A lot of it was probably the day I gave birth. So I'll tell you the story. This is probably where I had like PTSD. But so my mother was, when I told my mother I was pregnant, okay, and, we're Latinas, how Latinas think, right? When I told my mother I was pregnant, I remember telling her while she was sitting on the toilet, and I was like crying like really bad. And she's like, "What's wrong with you?" She's like, "What happened? What's the matter? Why are you crying? Did you get raped? Did something threaten to kill you?" You know how parents are, right?
She was just like, "What's going on?"
Right, and she grew up in El Salvador, where all the women were getting raped, and you know what I mean, and they had these deep dark secrets. And so I said, "No." She's like, "What's the matter?" I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm pregnant, and I don't know how long I am." And she's like, she's on the toilet. She gets off and she's like, "Oh my God." And she's like, "What are you gonna do?" And I was like, "I don't know." I was like crying my head off. Yeah. So long story short, by the time I figured out I was pregnant, I was already, I'm sorry, Adriana, you're gonna probably hear this. I was like 5 months pregnant already.
Oh.
And I was in pure denial, because at the age of 15, right?
Who thinks?
As your body is changing, and you're like, you don't have a period, and you're thinking, oh, it's just stress at 15.
It's nothing. It's fine. It's funny because I have my other friend told me the same thing. She's like, I didn't have my period for like 3 months, and I realized, no, I'm probably pregnant. Like, maybe that one thing I was doing caused me to be pregnant.
So exactly. And so anyways, I ended up, telling my mom, blah, blah, blah. I didn't have really prenatal care until I was like 6 months. And at that time, my mother had Kaiser, and, I was still dependent on her, so I'd go to Kaiser, and, the OBGYN, as compassionate as she can be, because I'm a teenage mother, there was a stigma.
Judgy.
Yeah, judgy. Yeah. Exactly. Right. Yeah. So I was doing all, whatever prenatal I can do. Then I go into delivery room, and it was so funny because I think this is essentially where the PTSD kicks in. My mother, I remember giving birth. I'm like huge. I'm dilated out, and I just remember the anesthesiologist coming in and saying, "Oh, I am Dr. So-and-so. I'm here to give you epidural." And my mother was like, obviously cursing her head off.
Oh no.
And said, "You are not giving her an epidural. You are not. I am paying for this insurance, and she is giving birth with nothing. She wants to," in Spanish, I don't know if I want to say a bad word. She wants to be a puta, she's gonna know. And so I did not have any pain medication giving birth.
No way.
To Adriana. The only thing the nurses can do, because she was fighting off everybody, was give me a hot shower.
Oh, wow.
That was it. On my back. That was my form of pain control.
Wow. And that was her way, probably, as like, just like, there you go.
Yeah.
For the pain you're putting me through. You know what I mean? like sometimes, like I think it's natural to say as parents we want our kids to know the pain they put us through sometimes, and sometimes we don't think they get it. So that's why your mom's like, no, she's gonna pay for it with the pain, and I'm not paying extra.
Yeah, exactly.
I told her not to have a kid anyways.
Exactly.
She didn't listen.
Exactly. And and obviously, I just remember, she was like fighting everybody off, and no, you're not giving her anything. This is her fault, in Spanish. So it was. So I really gave birth feeling everything that you can think of, and I think it was probably at that time where I was like, do I want to do this again? Wow, as I got older. But I think that that when that happened, and my mother, I'm sure she had good intentions, even though everybody was afraid of her in the delivery room. But I was young. I was 15 years old. I mean, hello, And I understand that was her way of trying to teach me a lesson, even though some may think it was cruel. I get it. I mean, but what did I have to say at that age? Mm-hmm. That I think that a lot of that really stemmed with, at least she tried to have good intentions, but maybe wasn't delivered in the right way. Right. And so that was her way of really kind of saying, woman up. Yeah. You want to act like a woman, you want to behave like a woman at your age, you're going to be treated like a woman. Yeah. And I think, she has a lot of brothers and sisters. She was the eldest daughter of her family. She witnessed her mother giving birth. She had a very hard childhood. So I think that's all she knew how to do at the time, to try to teach me a lesson.
Tough love.
It's tough love. So that was kind of interesting in regards to that situation.
But how many of us though try to teach our kids lessons, and sometimes we fail. Sometimes we mess up and we are like, dang, I shouldn't have done that. Or I shouldn't have said that. Or I think it's normal for parents to mess up.
Right. No, I agree. I think that, we're all, trying to parent children is very hard, and I think trying to lead by example is always hard as well. And I think, I have the two girls, and I was not a perfect mom. I was young. What did I know? By the time I hit 18 and I had a career at 21, I was still itching to try to do things, to figure myself out, because part of it was you lose this identity, right? You become this young mother, and then by the time I was in a relationship, and then I got married, and then it was like, now you're this wife. And then you're like, now you're this mother and this wife, and then now you're a nurse. So it's like you compartmentalize your identity, and so it's like, well, who am I really? Like, what? I've been through so much, and at 15, at 60, I mean, you try to figure out who you are. My kids kind of laugh at me because I'm still trying to figure it out at 42.
But you're doing a good job. And but how did you figure it out? Like, how did you, like you said, I'm trying to figure myself out. Mm-hmm. How did you end up finding yourself? What are things you did to make sure Cynthia was taken care of? Not the wife, not the mom, not the nurse, but Cynthia. Yeah.
So I think what ended up happening was I ended up metamorphosing myself into the career person, right? The nurse, then the wife, then the mother, right? And then you then become the daughter-in-law. Mm-hmm. I will be honest with you that I probably, when my marriage fell apart, and I think that when I finally was alone, right, and I had a different network of friends. When we're young, we have 10 million friends. Yes. As we get older, we realize we have just one or two, and that's all we need. Right. Because friendships are relationships, and they're hard to
manage.
Yes. Yeah. But of course, we figured that out as we get older. And I think it wasn't until after my divorce, when things fell apart, when certain things were said out of anger, and when people say things out of anger, I truly wholeheartedly believe that out of anger and ugly things are said, those are just really how they feel, and they just couldn't control. And I think that hearing some of those things, I was like, wow, they really feel that way about me. Okay. It wasn't something I couldn't dismiss. And so then when I got divorced, I ended up getting an apartment. I knew things were already falling apart, and I hate to say this, but you know, when women leave relationships, we plan. When men leave a relationship, it's always for somebody else.
That's a good analogy.
Right. So I kind of I knew something was brewing. You know, we always know something's brewing.
Yes, it's kind of
the whispers.
It's the whispers. It's the feeling. It's you know.
Yeah. And so when that started happening, I kind of knew something was in the trajectory for me. And when I was finally alone and I was going through my divorce, and it was actually a very it wasn't an angry divorce. I think we both knew it, but it's hard. You know, we were kids when we were together. You know, we were like 16, 17, 18, 19, right? That is like, you're so malleable at that age and vulnerable. And, you know, what do you know? I didn't know anything. I didn't know who I was at that age. And I think that when I finally moved into my apartment, and we had like nothing, like when our divorce was over, I didn't want anything. I didn't want any remnants of my past. I didn't want the furniture. I didn't want the bed. I think the only thing I took were the kids' stuff. And we literally were in an apartment sleeping on the floor, me and the kids, like it was camping, because I just wanted to start over. And when I was finally by myself, that's when I figured out who I was. Like, that's when I figured out that's definitely something I don't want or want to be, you know? And then that was when I figured out, like, oh, this is who I am. I kind of came more into Cynthia, you know? I was able to, you know, discern, what do I want out of people? What do I want out of relationships? What do I want to be as a mother, you know? And I started pulling that mold from everything else. Like, right, I was like the nurse. I didn't want to be the nurse 24/7. You know, I wanted to just be Cynthia when I'm not at work. I didn't want to be the mom 24/7, you know? So my kids, when they were with their dad, then I was Cynthia by myself, you know, doing Cynthia things. And so it wasn't really about that time that I really figured out, wow, this is who I really am, you know?
And you learned at that time, like, would you say, how to manage all the roles that you're playing?
Yeah, and how to put the roles to sleep, you know what I mean? Because you burn yourself out, you know? You burn yourself being the wife 24/7. You burn being the mom 24/7. And I think some of it, of what contributed to the failure of the marriage, was I ended up being, like, molding my, like, you're like this clay, and you're like, I clayed myself to his art, or I clayed myself to the art of work, or the art of being a mother. And so when I was finally able to pull that clay off, then I was like, oh, I can make my own form. And that's kind of where that
came from.
Yeah.
Do you think once you started realize, like, doing your own form, maybe that made it harder for people who are used to you molding to their needs? It made it harder for them to accept, like, what is this new girl doing? Like, this isn't the Cynthia I know.
Right. And you know, when I finally was myself, you know, people really knew who I was. You know, I was very transparent. I didn't really have nothing to hide. Yes, my marriage failed. You know, yes, it was hard on my kids. I get it. You know, because I've had criticism during that process, you know. And I think that once my closest friends really realized that I was at my happiest, you know, like, this is where we need to be. And you know what? I mean, I was a single mom at the time after the divorce, and that's okay. People were successful as single parents. And, you know, I think that it was kind of hard, though, at first, you know, having that stigma.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was. Because it's a lot of, at that time especially, like, I think people focused on families being together, and, like, divorce is such a taboo. Now I feel like people are more open to it, because they understand that it's toxic to be in a relationship with somebody who, or to be not in a relationship with somebody, but just to be in a home and try to support kids when you're not happy. Right.
And I had a good friend, and we worked together. We're still good friends, actually. And she told me one time when I was, like, going through my divorce, and she actually was a bit older than me, and she said, you know, Cynthia, you know, my parents are divorced, and I will tell you, she's like, I think what I've learned is that I would rather have 2 loving homes than 1 toxic home.
Oh, I agree with that.
And I think that's where it was like, oh my God, she's so bright. Like, my kids could have 2 loving, welcoming homes, you know, rather than this toxic, unhealthy, unloving, you know what I mean, home. And so I think that's really where that gave me the courage that, you know what, it's okay to be alone, and it's okay to, you know, be with my kids, and it's okay that they're going to go with their dad, and their dad's going to have relationships, and they're going to be healthy, and they're going to see both sides. They're going to see both parents happy.
Yes.
You know. So.
And some parents won't be happy, but the kids, the fact that they see that is still good, because sometimes I think sheltering kids from like any hurt or pain or anything only hurts them in the long run, because I feel like they don't know how to deal with the hardships when they become an adult and they encounter certain things.
They can't cope.
They can't cope. Or also what I learned too is if like we try to shelter our kids from certain things, they're going to want to try those things because they're curious, because they don't know how it looks like. For example, drugs, right? Like things like that. Like we both grew up seeing what it does to people, and that's what steered us away. I mean, luckily the girls don't experience that with me, but I always tell them, look at this person, look at that, like expose them to that stuff, because I don't ever want them to go in trying things blindly. You know? So exposing them to things, and like you said, like, okay, you're going to have your relationships, he'll have his relationships, but the girls at least know like what they're not going to be in one home, you know, because, and then also I think a big mistake is when people stay with each other for the kids, because the kids then, what I've come to learn through experience with people who I've talked to, they feel guilty because their mom is unhappy, because their mom says, I stayed with your dad for you, and they're like, why? I didn't ask you to. Like, you know, I feel like parents always know best, and they should go with their gut and do what's right for them, because if they're healthy and a happy mindset, they're able to be better parents for their kids.
You're absolutely right. And you know, my mom, you know, she would say, Mija, you know, men are like buses. Okay? She's like, you're at the bus stop, you missed the bus. I said, what do? Chase after it? She's like, no, you sit there and wait for the next one, because there's always another one coming. So that was like the analogy of like, Mija, okay, if it doesn't work, there's another person that's going to come. It's okay. So I think using that analogy, and I tell my girls, men are like buses, just remember that. Or
there's a lot of good analogies, like Sex and the City analogies are hilarious. There's so many, but it's true. You know, you have to, like I always say, I'm going to do a podcast on this episode too. It's called I'm Not a Ride or Die. And I'm okay with that. Because we have to stop telling kids, be a ride or die. The music out there, ride or die, bitch. Like, no, I'm not. You're doing illegal shit. I'm not with it. You're not paying your bills. I'm not with it. You're like not doing this. I'm not. You're gonna hit me. I'm not with it. Like I'm not a ride or die. Like you do good by me. I do good by you. And together we'll do good together. Like you know what I mean? That culture of like.
Yeah. We a good friend, my best friend Mel, who I love dearly. And we met at work. You know, we call ourselves Lamborghinis. So there's only a few Lamborghinis out there that can keep up with us. If you're not a Lamborghini, bye.
You gotta hit the road.
Like, bye. Like whether it's you're into drugs or, you know, doing toxic stuff or lying or whatever. But if you're not a Lamborghini, we don't mess. Just that's our version of ride or die, right?
So what would be your what are things that help you get through like times of where you're like, okay, I'm in this relationship, it doesn't work out, bye. Even though it might be hard, right? Like sometimes it's hard, and that's when people say like too, like they'll tell me like my mom, she's like, you're so lucky, like you found Kevin, and like you know, and I'm like, Mom, I'm lucky. First of all, like it has nothing to do with luck. I worked hard to put myself in positions that I'm successful in my own right, number one. And number two, I've had to leave hard relationships in order to make room for another one or a healthy one. Like it's not about luck. Like you make choices every day. You know, to put yourself in a situation where you're gonna become, or you wanna become, you know, you want to have a certain level of like, okay, you know what, this is the kind of level of person I want to be with, or this is the kind of person I want in my life. And being with someone who has a career is completely different from having someone who doesn't have a career, because their values are different. It's just different, right? So I hate that thing, like, you're so lucky. You know, it's like, no, I'm like, in order, I think what you said too is like, you have high standards. Like the Lamborghini is a very expensive car. Like there's only a few of them. So like, I'm sure it's not easy getting rid of those Hondas that pass you by, or those, you know, whatever.
You're like, okay, the warranty's over.
Yeah.
It's time to go.
Time to go. You know, how do you manage like dating and like trying to find love and all of that stuff?
Okay, so dating is exciting for me right now. And, you know, I've been after my marriage, I was in a pretty long-term relationship. And it was great, you know, we all like, you know, you're in love and, you know, and I'm not going to deny being in love is great. I tell my girls that. Find somebody you're going to be in love with. Don't dismiss that. It is very important. It is a different set of emotions. But at the same time, you know, the relationship ended up really toxic towards the end, and it got pretty bad. And I think it was really until, like I said, you realize or you don't realize when my behavior started changing. I wasn't really laughing all the time. My kids saw that I was a little unhappy. And then my friends, you know, that I haven't seen for a long time, they're like, what is wrong with you? Like, something's wrong. And I'm like, no, nothing. You know, you start getting like secretive. Mm-hmm. You know, you're like avoiding your friends. You're self-isolating because, you know, there's a form of shame that comes when the relationships don't work out, mm-hmm. you know. And I think that really owning it and not being ashamed in the end, it was learning that and really saying, yeah, I was in a relationship. I was very much in love, but it didn't turn out, you know, Alice in Wonderland-ish like you expected, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. For a while, I was like, oh man, this really sucks. You know, you go through all those, what do you call it? Those, it was kind of like hitting rock bottom almost, mm-hmm. right? You put so much energy into a relationship and then it falls apart. But I think once it fell apart, when I started losing myself, right? Like after my marriage, I was like, oh, this is Cynthia. And then I got into this relationship. It was great for years. And then when I realized, oh my God, who is Cynthia? Uh-huh. And people were like, where is Cynthia? I think that's when I realized, okay, I need to get out because mm-hmm. this is not good. This is not healthy. And then really finally just saying, okay, you know what, I'm not in a healthy relationship, it's time to get out, and it's okay to get out because, you know, there's so much involved in a long-term, you know, there's so much involved in a long-term relationship. Uh-huh. It's like an investment, right? And I think, you know, really understanding what I needed again, recognizing or finding myself again, mm-hmm. Is really kind of made me realize that the relationships and the dating, it changed me. And then, you know, of course, after that, I started dating, and Tinder was always fun. Mm-hmm. But, I don't know, it's a little interesting. But I think that, you know, I think that of course, I've gotten older and I've learned from all those, whether it was my marriage, whether it was the past relationship, whether it's dating, you know, all the lovers that I've had, you know, in my life, young to now, I think that you build this tool shed and you know which tools you need to use and what not to use at the right time and the wrong time. But it's harder as you get older, mm-hmm. you know, because like you said, you are who you are. You've worked hard, right, for your career, your finances and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And then as you get older, you want to meet somebody on that same level. But as you get older, you're like, are you at that level? You know, kind mm-hmm. of thing. Mm-hmm. And so it's a little challenging right now, I will say. Mm-hmm. I mean, but I think I take everything as an experience and learn from it. Mm-hmm. There are great qualities in all the people that I've been with, and then there's not so great qualities, and you're like, yeah, I can't do that one, you know. So yeah. It's interesting, but I will say that I don't date anybody with little kids. It's so bad to say because I'm 42. Mm-hmm. I'm 42. I have kids that are 26 and gonna be 19.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to go to no soccer games.
I don't know.
I hate to say that.
I don't know. Don't say never, because I always said I'm not gonna date someone with kids.
Oh.
Always said it, and then here comes Kevin and his 3 daughters. And I'm like, oh my God, they're so cute. What can go wrong? They're little kids.
No. They have to be able to babysit themselves. No, I'm just kidding. It's just, you know, it's, again, I'm at that point where, like, for example, I'll tell my kids, hey, I'm not coming home tonight. Feed the dogs. Bye. And they're like, where are you at? Don't worry.
Yeah, and having mom time.
Yeah,
or time.
Yeah. Or like the kids will be like, bet your love cater on. Off.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's funny because as I've gotten older, the roles have kind of reversed.
Yeah, because they're worried about their mom too. It's like, like my mom can't have too much. She can have fun, but we know my mom's a social butterfly, and she'll just talk to anybody. So
so it's interesting, But I'm open to it. I meet a lot of people. When the timing is right, I guess, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like the whispers, right? The right person will come along and the wrong person will leave, so that's okay.
That's good that you don't put so much emphasis on it.
No.
You're just like, it is what it is, it's fine, you're just going with it. But
right.
I do see how, like you said, like you're getting older, and I think that's a natural fear of people who are getting older and are like, am I ever going to find love again, or what's going on? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's good that you're just taking it as it comes. Like, hey, it happens. And I think your upbringing helped you with that, because growing up in a home with a lot of roommates coming and going, it kind of made you, I think it made you like accept new people, but also keep on going. You know what I mean? Like, it's a good thing, and then it also could be like, I don't think it's been a bad thing for you, but some people can just like dismiss people so easily.
Yeah, I've been told that, I think one of my biggest flaws that I have been told is I'm not needy enough. And I think that comes with age, though.
I know, yeah.
Right? I think it just,
Sometimes we have to pretend. But see, I can see how you're not needy. You're just very independent.
Yeah. I redid my whole closet by myself and laid wood down and pulled the carpet by myself, so people find that like, okay, well, what do you need me for? Like, well, there's other things, you know? Yeah. Like, I would love to go to Spain or to Italy, stuff like that. But I think that, I don't know, people...
No, you're like, you don't need to pay for me, but you can be my partner and go. At least, like, pay for yourself. But still, we got to get that clear. You don't need anyone to take you to Spain. You have a lot of initials. You have more initials than I can count here.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. I think that, like I said, life is crazy. Yeah. But, the right people will come in and the wrong people will leave, and that's okay. Yeah. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So being that we have this history, I got into girl talk with you, but let's go back to why you're here. Because we're talking about motivating.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Still, so back to when you were going to school and you had Adriana and you were, you had Alexis, like... Did you encounter any like mom shame because you were working so much or going to school? Like, talk a little bit about that, because there's a lot of moms, I think, that might be listening, and dads that may be listening, and who, like, now dads are like the main providers for their kids too. So like people who are trying to like build their business, build their career, but yet it feels so bad like leaving the littles at home or whatever.
Yeah, no, I think that, again, there was a lot of shame being a teenage mom. I did have fear of going in public, and I was very, like, baby looking when I was younger. I was not womanly looking when I was younger. I didn't have, like, some of these girls nowadays are very voluptuous, but I was not that at all. I was a total tomboy, and I looked like a tomboy. And so I think that some of that shame stemmed from when I was a teenage mother. You'd go to the store and, you have these, older women, maybe married, just kind of side-eye you, and you're like, yes, I am 16 with a kid, stuff like that. So I think that shaming started when I was young, and it was just a different time back then. And so I think, again, as I've gotten older, we then started compensating being the teenage mom, right? Okay. And then when I was a nurse, you develop a lot of friendships at your work. And I remember, I want to say I had to been like, I think it was like 5 years into nursing. In that field, you become very close. They're like your family. You're there 12 hours a day. You work overtime. Many of us work overtime because, of course, if our home life is a mess, you avoid being home. It was to the point where my life was such a mess that I would pick up so much overtime because I never wanted to come home. So that meant I never saw my kids. And then that became a problem. But you were just trying to avoid the issues. And I remember I was at work, and I'll never forget one girl, and she was older than me. I had decided to go back for my bachelor's. And at that time, in nursing, there's a lot of longevity. People are very dedicated. They've had 20 years in the field, 30 years in the field. They were the experts, and I have been trained by phenomenal women. I will say that. I give a lot of credit to the people that did raise me in my career. because they were like truly badass. But there was like one I remember, I'll never forget. I decided to go back to, and I was like, the marital problems started happening. And I remember I decided to go back to get my bachelor's, and I was going to Cal State Fullerton. At that time, Riverside Community College had a bridge program where if you were like an alumni nursing, you can go into their Fullerton program. And I just remember I went back to school because I think I was just avoiding my life at home. Like, it was just another thing to pile on my plate to avoid. And I remember being told, like, I remember her telling me, well, why would you go back to school? Like, how dare you? Like, you have 2 kids. You should be a mother first. And I was like, well, I am a mother. Well, yeah, well, you should mother them first before you try school.
This was a coworker?
Don't you think that's a bit selfish, Cynthia? Yeah. And I was like,
oh, she's that hater we were talking about.
Yeah. Oh. And I was like, I remember just being kind of taken back, like, and I was young. I was like, I think by that time I was like 23, 24, or 25, maybe 25. And, you know, and I obviously
audacity.
And I just like thought, I mean, but that like really was in my head, like, wow, I should be a mother first. Like, I'm selfish. You know, how dare I think about myself over my kids? And then the next comment was, well, don't you know the only thing you can do with a bachelor's in teach? Why would you do that? You don't make any money. And, you know, and I just thought like, wow, like, you know, it was just such like an eye opener. And it did make me think about it. Like, was I selfish? Was I?
Yeah, she planted that seed in your head.
You know, and I was like, oh gosh, you know, or is it a waste of my time to go back for my bachelor's? You know, I started second guessing myself. And then I can say that was the beginning of, in regards to my career, of that mom shame, like feeling that shame, like maybe it's my fault why my marriage is suffering. You know, maybe I'm not a good mom, or you know, maybe I should try to make it work, or hold on to the family unit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, she planted that I want to call it a weed.
Yeah.
Because it was not good for your health. I just made this up right now. That's how good I am.
Yeah, you have to like pull that sucker.
Yes, it's a weed or a seed, okay? A weed is something you need to extract immediately because it's just going to grow.
Yeah.
A seed is something you want to water.
Right.
Hey. So she planted a weed in your brain.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
man.
yeah. So that was probably my first experience of like that, like hardcore mom shame, and I'll never forget that.
What about mom guilt? Like, not shame that people put on you, but you put on yourself. If you encountered that or not. I encounter that all the time, and the girls are old enough. So.
Yeah, and I think that the mom guilt didn't occur until my marriage started falling apart. And you know, again, like I said, you know, when women leave, they plan, right? And that it was already happening. Like, you know, the how do you say, the whispers, or you know, the crumbling already started to begin, or the cracks before it crumbled already started beginning in my marriage. And I think that the mom guilt didn't settle until towards the end, when all I wanted to do was just get out. I just wanted to be with friends. I think at that time I was probably drinking a lot, I think. Like, not drinking in the sense like I day drink, but I think it was like we'd go after work. Because remember, I didn't want to come home, because when I came home it was a fight, right? And I didn't want to fight. I was just so tired. You know, I always knew the relationship was over when you were done fighting, right? When you fight passionately with somebody, it's because you still want to hold on to them, or you still want things to work, because there's something worth salvaging. But when I didn't want to fight anymore, I was like, I was tapped out. And I remember I would take every opportunity to go with my tribe after work to go get drinks. And then I'd come home when the kids were asleep, or, you know, when my partner was asleep, because then I didn't have to deal with any of it, right? And that's when the mom guilt was settling, because then I was like, okay, one, I think I'm going out too much. And then, but two, it was like, I'm not home with my kids after work. But a lot of it was because I was trying to avoid the constant fighting. And so I think that's when the guilt settled or started. And then the guilt went away When I finally was in another relationship, I was kind of dating somebody, and then I realized, it's okay. It's okay to be away from the kids. It's okay, that I'm not here 24/7. It's okay that I can jump on a plane and go on a trip for a weekend, and that's kind of where that mom guilt kind of went away, because my kids were happy, with whoever they were with, family, their dads, whatever, because they were happy. So
they were taken care of.
Right, the guilt went away.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. What advice would you give somebody, if any, going through similar, trying to manage life and kids and their selves? How would you, what advice would you give someone? Say someone who was at your age trying to manage it all.
I would say that if somebody is offering you help, take it. I think I was so prideful when I was younger. And of course that stems from probably my childhood and being raised by a very prideful woman. And I think that it's really hard to let your guard down, because you don't want people to know your weaknesses. And I think that what I would advise is, if they're offering help, take it. Mm-hmm. It's okay. It doesn't define you. Those are the whispers. Those are the people that God has put in your life. Maybe they're not there all the time, but they've put those people in your life, or they're offering you services. Take advantage of it. Yeah. And without feeling embarrassed or shameful, or, I think that kids are meant to be raised by a tribe. Mm-hmm. They're not meant to be raised by just two people, mom and dad. They are meant to be raised by aunts and uncles and neighbors and nannies. And I really feel like all those people, they contribute something to your life, good or bad, but they do contribute to, being creative, or being curious, or learning to cope, or how to converse, or, these people bring so much to the table, so take advantage of it. So I say, just take the help.
Yeah, don't let your pride get in your way.
Yeah,
it's okay.
It's okay.
Good. So tell us, how did you, so when we were talking, and I got something that was very, that stuck out to me when we were talking the other day, we were going over just your journey through education, and you said, you talked about how you got into your doctorate program.
Well, it was your doctorate? No, my master's.
Your master's.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and that was, to me, this story really, was see, if people just took the leap of faith.
Right.
You never know what can happen.
Right.
So get into that story for me.
So again, let's see, when I finished Fullerton, actually, it wasn't easy at Fullerton. I loved the campus. But again, I was going through those hardships, and I think I had to take a semester off. And once I finished my bachelor's, I knew that I hate to say this word, but in my field at the time, unfortunately, my personality is I tend to get bored really easy. That might be a taboo word to say, but I do. That's my personality. I get bored. And at the time in my career, I was bored. I was very well rounded as a nurse at the bedside. I was doing trauma. I was doing, cardiac surgery as a bedside nurse. I was doing transplantation. I was doing organ donations. I mean, I loved it. I loved critical care. And I actually taught critical care when I finished my bachelor's as a clinical preceptor, because I really loved it. And I think at that one point I realized, okay, I can take a challenging patient and it was no longer challenging. And so I realized I was losing interest, which is bad for me, right? When I start losing interest. And so I decided to go back to school. But mind you, when I was at Fullerton, remember, there's a cumulative GPA. Okay, and that GPA wasn't so good, because the last year of going through my divorce, I was having a hard time. I was having a hard time with my studies. I was having a hard time with my grades. I mean, I've had developed a friendship with some people at school at Fullerton who actually helped me move. I loved him to pieces. He actually helped me get through my divorce, and he helped me with my moving, and he was just a great friend. I just loved him to pieces. And so what ended up happening was, after my bachelor's, my grades suffered. So I think I barely got my bachelor's. Like, I think the GPA at the time was like pass. I want to say with a C. I think that's what it is at the Cal States. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But my GPA sucked. And so my GPA at the time graduating was like 2.5. So, of course, 2.5, shame on you.
Right, you're in a university, you should have a
shame,
3.0.
but I barely made it, And I had a lot of good support from my academic professors because they're not there to allow me to fail. They're there to support me.
Right.
So I realized I was getting bored in my career, and I'm like, okay, what do I do? And I need to like level up here. I need some excitement or entertainment. I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie. That's because of my job at the time. Mm-hmm. And then I decided to apply to school, and I had two top schools mm-hmm. that I wanted to apply. Was UCSF because they were like world renowned in the program, and UCLA. They both are like competitors to each other. But I knew UCSF, I wouldn't be able to handle it because of my kids. Like, who do I have out there, right? Mm-hmm. So, and their minimum to apply was like 3.5. And so was UCLA, it was 3.5. I did not have a 3.5. Or maybe it was a 3.0 at the time, but I didn't have it. I had a 2.5.
You didn't have the minimum requirement.
No,
that's what you knew.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have it at all.
Yeah.
And I was just like, but I was just so like unsteady because I was bored, right? And I'm like, do I change jobs? Do I transfer? Do I do this? So anyway, so I ended up applying, and I remember at that time it was in 2006, so it's like usually a year before. Mm-hmm. I had just bought my condo. Me and the girls finally moved into this new condo. Like, a lot of great things were happening. Moved into the condo, and then it was just me and the girls. And then I applied. I was like, screw it. I'm just gonna like put all my paperwork together. Got my letters of recommendation, mm-hmm. and then I wanted to be a nurse practitioner because there was somebody at work who was like this badass nurse practitioner, and I wanted to be like her because she was so badass, right? Yeah. And so anyway, so I was like, yeah. And then I really loved critical care, mm-hmm. And so. I applied, and when I applied, I was like, screw it. I sent it in. And the next thing you know, like, I get this letter, like, congratulations. I was like, what? Yeah, I was like, how did I get accepted? Yeah. I'm like, is this the right application? And so what ended up happening was, and I sent it with a 2.5.
Right.
And what ended up happening was, I got accepted with a contingency. Okay, so this does exist, you guys. Okay, and the contingency was that I had to pass with like a B or better in my first semester. That was the contingency, because essentially they were like taking a chance on me. Like, right. Like, okay, like this girl is like, because of my story, I wrote this story actually. My story was based on, what was it? It was on being a statistic in the Latin community. Yeah,
but in the application process, doesn't it have that? It has room for that, so you can tell them about. So you
have right. So you have to write a personal story, like it's called a letter of intent.
Right.
And my story was being a teenage person. Like, I was a statistic. I mean, single home, right? Latin, poor, mm-hmm. right? Latina, right? And so. Teenage pregnancy, so I had all the odds against me. So I wrote this letter, and then when I got it, I was like, oh my god, I got accepted, and I was like, shit, what do I do?
Yeah. Now I have to just wing it and get it. Then all that. Yeah. I knew I would ask her, what do I do next?
So I was like, oh my god, and so I was like, I have kids. I think at the time Adriana was like 13, and Alexis was like 3. Mm-hmm. She was a baby at the time, right? And so I was like, oh my god, what am I going to do? How am I going to handle this? So I get accepted, and I'm like all excited. It's UCLA. Me and the kids are like super excited. I take them to the campus, and so then it's like I make it happen. I change my schedule. I worked every weekend for 2 years, and I traveled for 2 years from Marietta to UCLA.
Oh my gosh.
5 days a week.
Yeah.
Or four days a week.
Sacrifice.
Right. And so, don't ask me how I did it. I think it was like numb. I probably was like in another body or something. I was just like out of body experience. And So anyways, it was funny because when I was the first semester, I will tell you, I had just finished bachelor's or some time, like I didn't know how to be a good student. You know, the first year of college, whether you're community, whether you're a Cal State, whether you are at a private university, your first year is like a fumble because you don't know time management still, you don't know how to study. I obviously didn't have photographic memory. Some people need repetition, some people are visual learners, some people are audible learners, some people are dyslexic, so, you know, and so I was trying to figure out what works for me. And again, I was a statistic. I didn't have all those resources, right?
Right.
Like I always felt like I was just kind of winging it. So my first semester, I get accepted, and my first semester, I like totally bombed the first semester, and I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna get kicked out, like, because you know, the first semester is a challenge. You have all these books.
Right.
You're trying
it's scary.
you're trying to navigate the campus. You're trying to figure out what the heck is going to be on the test, right? It's you know, more information about medicine, and you're like, oh, this is really stressful. And so the first semester, I remember, I think I like bombed, and like if you bomb, plus I was on the contingency. If you,
which is extra pressure.
So if you like get a certain grade, I think you get like a C or something like that. Excuse me, and you have to see the dean. So I bombed, and I was like failing, and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna die, like this is not good, I'm like such a failure. So I go to meet the dean. I'll never forget. She was like the advisor, or like the assistant dean, Dr. Cardigan at UCLA. I'll never forget her, and she was like from Boston, so she had like this thick accent. And I just remember I was like, oh, I'm so sad, I'm so like overwhelmed, I'm crying in tears because I thought I was gonna get kicked out. And she's like, so Cynthia, what's going on with you? It's like, why? What's happening here? You know? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. It's like I was just in tears, like, you know, like you're in trouble. Like remember going to the principal's office.
And this is a big opportunity for you. You did not want to miss that.
Exactly. And so I just remember I was like in tears, like, oh my God, I'm gonna get kicked out. I'm such a failure. What do I tell my kids? And I just remember she like put this light bulb, and she's like, do you know why you got accepted? I was like, no. And she's like, what's happening at home? And I'm like, nothing. I have my kids. And I think she knew like I was a single mom and like struggling with the kids and work, and it's a lot. And to drive 2 hours, it's a lot. But I learned actually the downtime of the drive. I learned audiobooks, which saved my life. So she goes, well, Cynthia, do you know why you got accepted? And I'm like, no, like. Probably because of my letter of recommendations. She's like, no, you were like top 5. I was like, what? She's like, yeah, you were like top 5. So why aren't you behaving like the top 5? I was like, I don't know. She's like, you know, we read all these applications and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, well, you know, you were like top 5% out of 900 applicants. I was like, So it was like really like, wow. So I think that realizing like all your hard work really pays off, but you have to like accept the help, right? You're not going to be perfect. You do have struggles. You know, you're still learning and navigating academia, and that's okay. But you shouldn't like not put effort into it just because you don't meet the minimum qualifications.
Yes,
right.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what I wanted. That's exactly what I wanted people to see. It's like you didn't meet the minimum requirements.
I didn't. I didn't fit the mold. Right. I did not fit the mold. You know, I wasn't this like, you know, super intelligent 4.0 cum laude that, you know, was going to this prestigious school. I did not fit the mold. And I think that that's okay. You're not supposed to fit the mold. You're not, you know, you are who you are, like your past, your present, you know, and I think that is what really taught me, like, boy, I could really do anything, you know, it doesn't matter, like, you know, that I was a statistic, you know, it doesn't matter if I was a teenage mom, you know, I wasn't meant to fit this mold. And that is probably my message is who cares, because really it's those people that have like the trials and tribulations and the struggles and, you know, the hard home life, the hard relationships, those are the ones that, one, remain curious, right? And two, that really just, go against the grain, and those are the ones that end up successful and really keep going and driving. And it's another trial and tribulation. It's like just another wave that comes crashing through your life, and you just swim through it and you're okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of like my message is just go for it. What's the worst that can happen? They tell you no. So
yeah, you would have never known.
Right, exactly.
You would have never known that you can get in if you just said like, oh, my GPA is low enough.
Right.
Like, too bad I can't do it.
Right.
Like,
yeah, so who cares? I think people who come from hard lives, they've been rejected, but not in the rejection of no, like verbally being told no. I think that there are so many forms of rejection, rejection of a parent, rejection of a lover, rejection of a family member, whatever, rejection of your friends. I think we've all experienced rejection in some form. And I think that, moving forward and really trying to, again, if you want to go to the school of your dreams, but you don't have the GPA, so what? What's the worst that can happen? They reject you. Hey, you apply again or you go somewhere else. It's okay. Because I think your resilience will get you where you need to go.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
And another thing too is like the hardest part is throwing. It's like the hardest part is jumping. The hardest part is committing to something. Right? Because at the end of the day, once you're committed, the rest will take care of itself.
It does. It really does. I'm a strong believer in that everything falls in place. It's not how many times you fall, it's how many times you get up.
Yeah.
So I think and again, I really think that everything just is there. Everything happens for a reason. Even all the hard stuff, right? Like the hard stuff is supposed to teach you something, and what are you going to take away from it, right? Like what are you going to take away from this issue? Like, is there something you need to slow down a little bit? Do you need to correct something in your life? Is it a behavior? Is it something toxic? Is it an addiction? What is it?
Yeah.
So I think we all have to just kind of look at it in all different vantage points and move forward.
Yeah, and I think that it's hard to go to school, to have kids, to sacrifice so many things that you've had to sacrifice. Time with your kids, time with your friends, money because you're in school. What I mean? You sacrifice so much. And we have to pick our hard.
Yeah.
So it's hard to go to school. It's hard to find a babysitter. It's hard to manage all of these different roles in our life.
Right.
But it's also hard to live in regret.
Right.
And to feel like, I could have done this. I could have done that.
Right. Yeah, and I think that you're right. It is hard to live in regret of what I could have, should have done, right? And I think that, and it's the same thing with like relationships. I mean, how many times we're like, oh my God, how could I have been with that person? I'm so regretful. But I think at the same time that I prefer to have at least tried and failed. Rather than not have tried it all.
Definitely.
And I think that for those people that are like kind of questioning their abilities or their confidence, or the people that will help or not help, or their life situation, believe it or not, the help is there. It is there. If I could do it with 2 kids by myself, I mean, I used to go to UCLA. Okay, mind you, from where I live to UCLA is about 2 hours. So I was losing 2 hours of time with my kids. I had to wake up at like 4 or 5 in the morning just to get to campus at 8. Then I had to wait. If anybody knows what 405 traffic is like, 405 traffic doesn't die until about 7:30, 8 o'clock. So I had to wait on campus, right? School was over about 5:30, and then wait for traffic to stop and slow down, and then take a 2-hour drive. So I didn't leave campus from like 8 o'clock and I'd get home at 10. So who was there watching my kids? The babysitter I had to hire, sometimes my mom, sometimes cousins, sometimes their dads. I mean, it
took a village.
Yeah, sure. It did. It took a village. Sometimes themselves. Adriana at the time was already like 14, she really kind of helped with my little one, Alexis, walking her to school, walking back, picking her up from the babysitters, so I think it took all of us. And I think when I got accepted into UCLA, really the mindset, which it's our mindset now at home, is it's a team. Like, I'm not doing this by myself. I can't do it by myself. It's too hard. It's hard. So it was like, I needed Adriana to help me. I needed Alexis to help me. I needed their dad to help me. I needed help. It was a team. And I think that when the kids understood, like, it was a team effort. It wasn't just mom going to school and I was neglecting them, as some people would like to tell me. It was a team effort. It was all of us. I mean, there were times when they were in summer. I will say they had to wake up early in the morning with me, and I took them to campus, and they would run around UCLA campus while I was in school. At times, my professors, I loved them. I have to say they were like just awesome at UCLA. They would let me bring the two kids, sit at the back of the auditorium, and the girls would be doing homework, like, or coloring, and they were super quiet or else they'd get in trouble. But they were like super, and they were getting like UCLA education at the age of like 5 and 14, you know? Yeah. And so like, you know, it was a team, you know? Yeah. So it was like, I was never really alone. It just, you made it happen, and you had to find those resources and those people. So
is there anyone you want to give a shout out to? On your team?
Oh.
The team who helped you, you know, when you were in school.
Oh, God, there's so many. I don't know, like, I mean, I think their dad, you know, once we were divorced and stuff, their dad really helped me, which was Leo. Mm-hmm. He really helped a lot. He understood. I think that, again, you know, my mom, you know, they all just really, you know, helped me get through. Yeah. But I think it was just like the mentality, you know, it takes a team, like you said, a village. It just took all of us. Yeah. And I think that, you know, we really have to kind of, because we're so prideful, we kind of have to put our guard down and allow the help. Yeah. You know, allow the help. It's okay. It's okay to have the help.
And now you're going to try to go crazy, like trying to do it all by yourself. Yeah. And there's no way, there's no reason why. Like, okay, your kids are your mom's grandkids. Your you know, Leo, that's his kids. Like, he's helping you in a sense, but he's also preparing, making sure that you're doing what you're doing to benefit his kids. Right. Like, hey, it helps the whole, it's like a big team. You know, you're doing well by your kids to be able to provide for them and give them the life that you want to give them.
Right. And I think, you know, even like, you know, the girls as they got older, you know, they all talk about going to college. And, you know, it was funny when I would travel a lot. Well, when I was doing like a lot of like conferences or traveling or whatever, every big state I'd go to, I would always, there's souvenirs, you know how people get souvenirs? Yes. So I would not bring home, well, I would bring home souvenirs, but I wouldn't bring trinkets. Mm-hmm. So I would bring home sweaters to all the universities. Good. So I would bring like NYU, or I'd bring, you know, San Francisco, UCSF, or I'd bring Harvard sweaters. So those were the gifts, because it was like really trying to say, hey, you know, someday this could be you guys. You know, you could pick wherever you want to go. Right. So those were the souvenirs. So they have like a ton of sweaters with all the universities, you know, because that was the gifts when I would go travel instead of the trinkets. You know?
Yeah, that's cool. You're trying to plant that seed in their head. Like, look at, like, this can be you. Yeah. Like, this can be you.
Yeah. So it was kind of, you know, that was exciting. And, you know, I love UCLA. Like, the campus is beautiful. And then once I decided to get my doctorate, you know, again, I applied to Duke. Duke is so competitive, very competitive. And then when I applied to Duke, I didn't think I was going to get accepted, and I did get accepted. And let me tell you, like, I learned a lot. You know, at a doctorate level, it was a different way of thinking. And let me tell you, towards the end, I used to tell my friend, I think I probably cried every day for like the last 6 months trying to finish my thesis, and it was just crazy. Yeah. And my friend who's the Lamborghini, she was finishing her doctorate, so you know, us Lamborghinis were riding together. And I just remember I was like, this is so hard. This is so hard. But it really did. It took a team to even get me through my doctorate.
Yeah, your tribe.
Yeah.
Your Lamborghini club.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, because I was on the phone half the time, like in tears, like, I just want to drop out. Yeah. I just want to. And she'd remind me, she's like, no, you can't. You can't drop out. I'm like, oh my God, is it worth it? No, it is worth it, you know? Or like the kids, you know, and of course they're like, Mom, you can do this. You're almost at the finish line. I'm like, oh my God, this is like terrible. And, but it was hard. It was, I will say, it was not an easy program. You know, you're going to a very prestigious school, and you know, they're not there to make it easy. They are there to put out strong clinicians in the field. And let me tell you, it was hard. It was hard. But you know,
probably pluck out the ones that wouldn't be able to handle the hard caseloads that you guys deal with.
Yeah, and it you know, and I think, like, I'll have to tell you, when I was at Duke, you're dealing with professors that are well published, and it's intimidating. I mean, at least for me. And I remember I had to put this PowerPoint together. It was funny now, it wasn't at the time, but I had to put this PowerPoint together. And so I guess there was etiquettes to a PowerPoint that I did not know until I got to Duke. Mm-hmm. And I remember I had to put my project, and I had like failed projects because it just wasn't good enough, right? And I remember putting this PowerPoint, and oh my God, one of the professors totally ripped my project apart. Like, totally. It was so bad that the students in the class felt so bad for me. Like, I was like, I didn't cry, but the other students were like in shock. My co-worker, like, how could that happen? Oh my God, Cynthia, oh my God. And I guess one of the students may have like reported it to the dean, and then the dean calls me. And she's like, Cynthia, I heard what happened. And she was kind of apologizing, whatever. And I'm like, I guess I was in shock of like how bad my project was. It wasn't perfect. I'm not a perfect student, Mm-hmm. I constantly learn. But the other students were very sensitive to the criticism. Mm-hmm. But there's constructive criticism, and then there's destructive criticism. Yeah. And she was being a little of both, but I get it. She is this well-prepared, well-published, professor that is taking the time to educate me. And I remember walking out, it was like break, and going to the bathroom, and I just started like laughing, because like, oh my God, I got And the students were like, are you okay? Like, are you okay? So then the other students started crying for me, because they're like, are you okay? Like, I think I'm okay. They're like, I don't know, I'm shocked. And so we were like 5 of us in the bathroom, like laughing, because I just got ripped apart. Yeah. But they were like, they were all after me, and they were like afraid to present. And so I was like, okay, I'm fine. It's all right. It's like, I've been through worse.
Yeah, I'll get through this. Yeah. Believe me better. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. And it was so funny because I didn't say anything. I didn't complain. I'm like, for me, I was like, here is this person who is taking the time to elevate me. Like, they're not here to destroy me. They're here to make me better like them.
That's a good way to think
about it. Yeah, and it was so funny because the students reported to the dean, and the dean called me, so like, Cynthia, I'm sorry, maybe this shouldn't have happened. And I said, no. I said, you know what? And she's like, well, why didn't you come to me? And I'm like, I didn't feel like I needed to come to you. Yeah. And she's like, well, everybody else did. She's like, 4 people did who witnessed it. And I said, you know what? I said, and she's the dean of the program. I said, you know what? I feel like she took the time to tell me what was correct. She is correcting my course. And I think that, I am the, I represent this university. And I know she does not want me to go out there doing things that makes me look bad. And I said, so I took it as constructive criticism, and I corrected it, and I just move on. I'm like, yeah, it sucks.
Good for you.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, it sucked. Yeah. I will say I went to the bathroom laughing, crying, because I didn't
let me cry.
I didn't know what to feel. Yeah. I was like, but it's okay. And I said, but you know what? It's okay, because like after that, it made me a better presenter. It made me better at my PowerPoints. It made me better at my projects, at my research. And so it sucked. I will tell you, it sucked because I probably could have dropped out. But I think that it's a mindset. And I think that good or bad, the shame, you feel the guilt, like, oh my God, am I not good enough for this program? I think you really just have to say it's okay, because they're here to tell me and I need to listen, whether it feels ugly inside.
Yes.
Right? I need to listen, because they're taking their time to tell me, or they're just, maybe they see something in me that I don't see, and maybe she wants me to be better because she's seeing something that I just am not getting.
Well, that's her job. She's a professor, and whether you like her approach or not, that's neither here nor there. She gets paid to teach you. And she was critiquing your work, not you as a person, because there's a difference.
Exactly.
You're not here to tell me my character, you're here to help me with elevate my work, like you said. So good thing that you thought about it like
Yeah.
that, because I think like having that mindset of like people who are in those higher up positions, when they give you constructive criticism, is to take it as constructive criticism, only there to make you better.
Right.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, and sometimes maybe the delivery wasn't so pretty. I get it, right? It's all about the delivery, and that's okay. But it was like, I can do this. I know she had good intentions. Maybe the delivery sucked, and the other students were like laughing, crying with me, but they were like, oh my God, this isn't even my project, and I'm laughing, crying with you.
Yeah.
And I think that, that's how you have to look at life, right? You have to look at life like, okay, this didn't work out. I didn't get the job that I wanted, or maybe I got fired from my job, or maybe I got written up. I don't know. Just take it as, okay, is there something I need to self-reflect on and correct?
As a learning experience.
Yeah, as a learning experience. Is this something I do need to change, or is it really the person who just doesn't like me? Or maybe this person actually sees something in me and wants me to be better, right?
Yeah.
Like, how many times have we ran across people and you're like, oh, they have such potential.
Yeah.
But they're just like, no.
They don't see it.
Right. And, you kind of tell them, like, you have so much potential, you need to do X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? And it really, again, it's about the delivery. And I just think, I just took it that way. So, I mean, school was not easy. But I've learned a lot about myself, and how I approach things. And again, those people were put in my life, right, for me to learn something about myself. Whether it felt good or not everything is going to be like cotton candy and it's going to feel good.
Exactly.
Right?
That's why you still got to keep on going, though.
Right.
Because you're the one that benefits from keep on going. Like, once you keep on going, you're going to reap the benefits.
Right.
Not that professor. I mean, you drop out because of that professor hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
Like, you're the one that's going to reap the benefits. I mean, like, the lack of education and, not follow your dreams because you let this one professor, like, chew you up and spit you out. And now you're like, okay, I'm not going to do it. So, yeah, like, no, definitely. Like,
but it was okay. It was fine, and like you said, you can't take it personal.
Yeah, every experience is a learning experience.
Right.
Like, I get really nervous when I'm nervous. I talk fast, and sometimes I don't even make sense because I want to get all my thoughts out. And like recently, I was asked to be on a panel, and they asked a question, and I'm like trying to give all of my answers in one sentence, and I'm like, oh my God. And then I got off of that, and then I was like, I called Kevin, and I'm like, I bombed that opportunity. Like, I don't know if they're ever gonna ask me back. Like, but it's okay because next time I'll do better. Next time I'll remember to breathe. Next time I'll remember to answer one question at a time. Next time I'll remember, whatever it is. Like, it is what it is. We mess up, and then and maybe that was my perception. Maybe that wasn't the perception of the people who I was talking to. Who knows, right? Because it's not like I can call them up and be like, hey, like, they're not, it's like not school. You know what I mean? Like, can you tell me what I did wrong or what I did right? Like, that's not their job, Like, so I'm like, oh gosh. But we're just left in our head. But we can either just dwell on it and let it cause us anxiety where I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And I'm really thinking about it and it's in my head all the time. Or I can just say, like, okay, next time I'll do better. And that's it.
And that's all you can do. And, we're not perfect.
Yeah.
We're not perfect, whether it's your home life, your work life, your friend life. We're not perfect.
Right.
I think that, and that's okay. So
that's completely fine.
Yeah.
Well, Cynthia, time is one of the best gifts you can give someone. So thank you for gifting me with your time today.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me. Yeah. I really appreciate it.
It was fun, right?
Yeah, it was.
I'm glad to have you back.
Yes.
I love your energy.
Yes, thank you.
For those of you watching or listening today, we spoke to Cynthia, who grew up poor, was a teenage mom, but didn't stop pursuing her dreams of working in the medical field. What is one thing you are taking away from Cynthia's story? Please leave me a comment. I would love to hear from you. If you were encouraged by this episode of Winging It and Winning, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and Winging It and Winning, and catch more episodes on podcast platforms where you get your podcasts from. Until next time, remember that winging it and winning is a mindset, and only you have the power to create your best life. Thank you. Until next time, bye.